I've been watching Attack on Titan for the first time ever, and I just finished the Marley arc of season 4, so let's talk about it. All right, so first of all, just a little check-in in case it's your first time, but also just because it's been a minute. And I apologize for the delay between when we ended season 3 to now only getting to talking about season 4 now, and it's just because I was extremely busy toward the end of March, beginning of April, and so we didn't have time on the weekends to do our watch parties, which is normally when we do the Attack on Titan watch parties. So that was the reason for the delay, and now that I've finished the Marley arc, I was thinking about just waiting until I had done all of part 1 of season 4 and then making a video, but, you know, I feel like there's enough to chew on here that I can just go ahead and share my thoughts, and that way I don't, like, maybe forget stuff from this arc. Then, you know, so anyway, we're going to do a video on just the Marley arc, and then I'll probably do another video on the second half of part 1. But yeah, okay, where to begin? For anybody that hasn't watched one of these videos before, this is my first time through Attack on Titan. I've never read the manga, never seen the anime, and going in completely blind. I pretty much haven't had anything spoiled for me, but because of that, I'm not reading the comments on these videos. I will read the comments after I completely finish Attack on Titan, just so that, you know, I can avoid spoilers to the best of my ability. So please do still comment, but just know that, you know, I'm not going to see it for a while. Again, because it's my first watch through, you know, I'm just piecing things together as we go. So these videos just serve as a way for me to kind of process things and make sure that I'm even tracking everything that's going on, because this is such a complex and well-told story. So yeah, just if this is your first time seeing it, it's just me yapping kind of without much cohesion or structure, just sharing my thoughts, but people seem to like to be a part of that process. So just apologies for the random yap, I guess. But with that being said, I guess let's just go ahead and get into it. All right, so first and foremost, I loved this arc. I really did. I loved that we got a glimpse of the other side, both in the present time, but also in the flashbacks of a young Reiner and Bert and Annie as they were being brought up and trained as warriors for this Titan program. It's such... Attack on Titan, I've said this many, many times, is just such a well-told, tight narrative. And I love the way that it's handling this very complicated but realistic subject matter, which is something we touch on a lot, is that war is hell, basically. And I think, you know, that's the 3-word description of Attack on Titan. A lot of stories, especially in the, you know, is Attack on Titan a shonen? Well, regardless of shonen, just a lot of stories in, you know, the manga space, as it were, are very prototypical, following a very, you know, I don't want to say basic, but a very standard structure, if you will. Good guy versus bad guy. Good guy overcomes evil. Victory, celebration, right? This is not that by any stretch, you know, because there is no good guy or bad guy in this story. I mean, there are good guys and bad guys, but that's just life, right? You know, it's not black and white. It's all morally gray, and very, very awful morally gray when it comes to war. Like, both sides have committed atrocities. You can empathize with both sides. You can understand why both sides want revenge, that they want to, you know, hurt the other. And it's tragic, right? And that's so real. Like, that's real life. This is happening in our world right now, every day. And so I love that Attack on Titan approaches those things as earnestly as they deserve to be. And I think this Marley arc is a great representation of that, right? We're getting to see the other side, not merely painted as like, ooh, these evil others, and, you know, they're just all demons. And it's like, no, they're just like us. And getting this entire experience like pivoted through the lens of Reiner is so good. I was clowning on the plot armor Titan last season, or probably even before that, because he survived so many different things. Now I can at least understand why. I understand what he was being set up to, like, demonstrate. So I can get past the plot armor Titan now. But again, on the whole, just a very beautiful arc. I'm trying to decide what I even want to talk about first. Let's just start at the beginning, okay? When I jumped into this, I remember the first thing I was like, is this a flashback? Is this a flash forward? What's going on here? And then we quickly come to find out that it is a time jump forward. And I don't remember how long it is actually, but maybe like 3 to 5 to 7 years or something in the future. And we are just in the midst of the Marleyan Empire at war. And I loved this because, season three, we thought this was the entire world, essentially, right? Like this island, the walled city, and then boom, we find out about the Marleyan Empire and all that. And it's like, okay, the king fled here, but there is this whole other empire out there. But still, even with that established in my mind, I'm like, yeah, okay, the Titan City is just a small city, but there is a whole world out there, and that's the Marley Empire. But launching into season four, we find out, yeah, the Marleys are people, the Eldians are people, but there's also a whole world aside from that. And we see that Marley is at war with other factions, not even the Eldians, right? And, at least I think I'm understanding that, right? And so it's just interesting to see that, there's a whole lot going on in this world besides the Titan stuff. Obviously, this is vastly important considering the threat that it poses, but, there are other empires besides the Marleyans and the Eldians, and, they're at war. And the big, through line, I feel like, of this arc was kind of that things are changing. Marley has been this powerhouse because of the Titans that they stole from the Eldians. And that's how they've kind of asserted their dominance and, built their empire, as it were. But we know that technology is now catching up. Modern technology with warships and bombs and, anti-artillery tanks and trains and everything, their supremacy is starting to wane, and they're realizing that. And it's just interesting to kind of have that be the backdrop of this arc as we're kind of witnessing this warrior program where it seems like it's kind of being faded out, or maybe not faded out is the right word, but it's like we're watching it become antiquated. Whoa. Antiquated. Jesus. Antiquated. Obsolete. There we go. Antiquated. What the hell was I trying to say? But yeah, so it's just cool to me that there are these other factions out in the world as well. And I'm curious if there's going to be anything deeper to that world building, or if it was just showing us that the world is a lot vaster than we were led to believe originally. And yeah, just seeing these young kids that are such the mirror and parallel to Eren, Mikasa, and Armin, so well done. Gabby and Falco in particular, and I can't lie, I don't even remember the other kids' names, but these two seem to be the most important. And Gabby is obviously just our little Eren, right? Love that parallel. Again, speaking to how we get to see, the Marleyan perspective. This is Eren if he had been born a Marleyan, right? Somebody who is so enthused for war and fighting for her side and kind of making things right as she understands it. And then, just like Eren wanted to be a part of the scout troop, right? And then, just like Eren getting basically super radicalized by his mom getting eaten by a Titan and becoming focused on revenge and hatred, the exact same thing happens with Gabby, right? After the terrorist attack on Marley. So I love this. I love this parallel, this mirror. But it is just so incredibly sad to see just how indoctrinated they are and how subjugated they are within the Marleyan Empire. But to them, it's because they've been fed this story about how evil their people are, right? So they understand why they're being treated this way, and they view this warrior program as a chance for them to kind of redeem at least their families. And I know Gabby in particular, her whole dream is to show people that all Eldians aren't evil, which is why that terrorist attack sets her back her mission so far, fuels her hatred that much more. But it's just sad to see. And I mean, the indoctrination exists on the Eldian side too, and it's just, there really is no escaping it, and they're just kids, that's what's awful about it. But one thing I actually really loved in this arc is the way that the older generations were trying to protect the younger generations. I feel like this is something that happened over and over, with Reiner wanting to protect Gabby from becoming the Armored Titan, with Zeke seemingly wanting to protect Colt from becoming the Beast Titan until the last possible moment. Also with I can't remember his name, the original Jaw Titan that got eaten, that Ymir ate. protecting his younger brother because he didn't want that life for him. I just love that sentiment, which also we saw on the Eldian side as well. Where there, of course, there's this younger generation that has been indoctrinated, that's been radicalized. I'm looking at you, Gabby, that is like so enthused for their chance to become a part of this, to make a difference, to participate in the war. But the older generation that has actually experienced it knows that there's actually no glamour in that. Like, you've been told a false story there. And so they want to protect them as best they can from that. And I just love that. Again, I love the way that, like, they're not that's so real and so human. And again, serves to humanize the Marleyans in general, right? Now, obviously, there are scumbags too. Don't get me wrong. But I just love that, specifically through the lens of Reiner, that we got to see that, and that it was like a generational thing that kept happening. And Falco, even, he is so young, and that's tragic, honestly, too. That, like, Reiner wants to protect Gabby, but he's like, you know what, Falco, you bite the bullet on this one. But Falco being willing to do that as such a young kid, wanting to protect Gabby as well. And honestly, Falco, I think, is like the bright spot of hope I have for Attack on Titan. Not to have a happy ending. Like, I don't see this series having, like, again, like the victory, the celebration, the we all live happily ever after ending. But Falco is my hope for just not a completely bleak ending. The reason I say that is because Attack on Titan is a cyclical story, something I think I've talked about in every single one of these videos I've made. Like, the process just keeps repeating. War is a process that perpetuates itself, right? Hatred bores hatred, violence bores violence, revenge continues forever, right? And like I said, we literally saw the next Eren being born in Gabby, right? So the cycle is going to continue. Eren himself perpetuated it by terrorizing, the city, right? And so it's like, yep, here we go again. But Falco, I think, is a hope that maybe he could change things, because he's a kid that's thrust right in that same cog of war, right? But he uniquely actually knows both sides and is empathizing with both sides, because he was in that room when Reiner and Eren were speaking to each other. He knows the truth. And even after, so he finds out the truth, right? And then the terrorist attack happens. And even though he saw Eren do that atrocity, he still had empathy for the Eldians, telling Gabby, he's like, the reason they're doing this isn't because they're evil, it's because we attacked them first. And Gabby's like, well, I didn't see that, because, she's not going to be changed at this point. But Falco still had that empathy. So it has me hopeful that, like, maybe if Falco is the next cog in this cycle, that maybe he could actually influence some change. But I don't know if that's wishful thinking. But I got my eye on you, young king. God, I just love all of the parallels and the cycles that this shows us, particularly with Reiner and Eren, right? Again, Reiner's such a tragic but well-written character here. Just finding out about, he was Gabby before Gabby even, right? He wasn't as enthused for, like, the revenge portion, but he just wanted to help his family. He just wanted to reunite with his father, connect his mom back with her. And then, of course, he finds out that his dad wants nothing to do with him. That's absolutely tragic. He gets to become the Armor Titan, and then finds out that that's only because, again, I can't remember his name, the Jaw Titan, like, sabotaged his own brother and, talked up Reiner because he just wanted to protect his brother. Such a fascinating character. And then finally getting the insight on what happened with the original Jaw Titan, and then Reiner, like, kind of being blamed for it, and then saying, like, all right, we should just go back, mission failed. And he's like, no, like, the mission will continue. I will be the I can't remember his name. This is destroying my flow here, but I'm just gonna call him Jaw, I guess. He'll say, I'll be Jaw from now on. Like, and he basically starts playing that character, like, who he thinks he needs to be, which is what he's always done his whole life, right? Play who he thinks he needs to be. He needs to become the Armor Titan to save his mom. He needs to become Jaw to keep the mission going. Then once he's in the wall, he needs to become the soldier to mask himself. And it's just so tragic. But I loved that because to me that was the true split point of his personality, where he wasn't himself because he couldn't be, right. And so he lost himself, right? And that's why I love seeing this older Reiner now trying to process all of this, seeing the cycle continue with this next generation of kids and not wanting that for them because he is so haunted by it, right? Which is why when he walks up to Eren, he's like, just kill me. Like I want to be done with this. Like he's not even, I don't know, he's not even mad at Eren, at least not in the moment, because he's just struggled so much with what he's had to do. And I love this so much because I believe when we were getting this scene, the kind of flashback we got to go in tandem with it was the young Reiner, Annie, and Bert like walking back from that guy who had taken his own life, and they're like, why did he tell us that story before he hung himself? And I think Annie's like, I think he wanted us to judge him. He wanted someone to judge him before he died, because that's how horrified he was at his own actions. And that's literally Reiner in this moment here, right? Like he wants Eren to judge him. He wants to be punished for these things that he's done, and then he just wants to die. He wants to be done with it. So it's just such a beautiful way to like loop those things together. But what I love here is that we've been talking about how Marley and Eldia, two sides to the same coin, right? There is no good guys, there's no bad guys here. There is like they've just, I'm trying to figure out how I best say this. To some extent, they really didn't have much agency in this, right? Especially when we're talking about these kids. They've just been indoctrinated their entire lives and thrust into this system. Like they were literally told and taught to hate each other. So like what choice did they really have? They're just products of their environment. That's the phrase I was looking for. But Reiner doesn't use that as a cop-out. He even tells Eren, like, I believe they're even having a conversation like this, because Eren says, like, now that I've lived here amongst you guys, like, you're just like me. Like, you're me. You know, you had no choice. You wanted revenge, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Reiner was like, no, I had a choice, Eren, because after Jaw got eaten, everyone wanted to go home, but it was me who said, no, let's keep going. I can't use that as a cop out. Yeah, you know, we all are raised by our circumstances, but I chose to break down the wall, and I didn't choose to have your mother eaten, but like that was my own choice. I wasn't forced into that. And I love that Eren was like, you really are exactly like me, because that's the same choice Eren is making in this moment, right? Eren, who has now lived amongst these people for I don't know how long, is basically the exact same as Reiner, right? And Eren could have chosen to be like, okay, you know what? I've seen now that all of these people aren't evil. They are just part of this machine that really only very few people have any control of. So I could choose to be the better person, to be the bigger man, and not perpetuate the revenge, the violence. But he chooses to. He's happy to. He says, I will do whatever it takes to run through my enemies. So you and I, Reiner, are the same. And I loved the layers to that, because the scene starts with them saying, we're the same. We both infiltrated each other. You know, we're both soldiers. And he's like, no, like I made a choice. I didn't have to do this. And Eren's like, yeah, I don't have to do this either, but I'm going to. And again, my goat Falco being privy to all of this information, and I think he might be the one that will make that other choice, because my boy's got that empathy. I swear to God, if young Falco gets killed here, that is going to be so incredibly bleak, because like I said, he is the only like shred of light that I have decided to latch onto for any type of hope in this series. But if he dies too, then just wrap it up, okay? There's no coming back from any of this. And I have a lot of thoughts on where I think the story's going and how this is going to go, but we'll get to that. And you know what? Speaking of the parallels between Eren and Reiner, there is another person we gotta throw into that mix, because he did the exact same thing as those two, and that is Eren's father, Grisha Jaeger. He literally did the exact thing that they did. You know, here Eren infiltrated Marley, pretended to have lost his memory, and starts living amongst them, right? Grisha Jaeger walked up on the walls of Paradise and is like, I don't remember anything, and starts living amongst them, right? But both of them were secretly on a mission. Eren obviously wants revenge against Marlians, but Grisha wanted to retrieve the founding Titan so that he could take that power and go destroy Marley and, restore Eldians to their rightful place of power, right? But Grisha did that, and I guess we can't say that Grisha necessarily viewed the Paradise Eldians as evil or demonic, but at the very least, didn't like him, right? Because for all intents and purposes, he thought that the king was just a coward who abandoned them. And I mean, I guess he was in some respects. But Grisha, once he actually is amongst these people, just like Reiner, gets conflicted because he realizes, oh, you know what? These people aren't like evil. And especially in Grisha's case, realizes that all of them have had their memories wiped. So they don't even know that there are other Eldians out in the world that they had abandoned. Grisha, Reiner, both supremely conflicted with their missions after being immersed in the enemy camp, as it were. Stark, even though both Grisha and Reiner did ultimately continue with their missions, but more on that in a second. I think that's in stark contrast to Eren, who, again, exact same scenario, right? Goes and lives with the others, does understand that they're not all evil and demons or whatever, but he doesn't have, at least not that we've seen, the same like conflict in his heart with what he's doing. He's not like really struggling with it like Reiner was, or maybe even considering abandoning the mission like Grisha did. Eren's just like, no, full steam ahead. I will destroy my enemies, which, there is no right and wrong, black and white in this scenario, but I think it says a lot that Eren, again, just has no hesitation compared to his father and Reiner, who are in the same situation, which shows that Eren is probably going to be capable of some very, very bad things that are going to perpetuate this cycle. But anyway, more on Grisha Jaeger, because again, we know that he's infiltrating the city to steal the coordinate. Again, like basically different circumstances and slightly different objective, but basically the exact same thing Eren is doing, right? But Grisha is conflicted. And again, for my money, I can't say this for sure. I don't know this. But to me, it felt like Grisha maybe even gave up on his mission. Like maybe had given up on stealing the coordinate and perpetuating war by going back to destroy Marley, right? He maybe had just found love, created a family, maybe had just decided to resign to enjoying his last years before, being the attack titan would ultimately kill him. Which again would be in stark contrast to how Eren is treating things. But I believe that because we know that on the night that Eren's mother died in the the Titans attacked, he went to the royals and begged them to stop it. So to me, that's Grisha being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take this freaking founding Titan from y'all. I'm happy. Can you please just use your damn power to stop the Titans so all of these people don't die? And they wouldn't do it. And of course, Grisha doesn't understand why, and I only now understand why, but we'll get to that. But they won't do it. And so then, and only then, seemingly Grisha got re-radicalized and decided to continue the mission, being like, I have to take this damn coordinate so that I can save my family. So that's how I'm reading that, which again would be very similar to Reiner. Like, the people who infiltrate the enemy, have empathy, are very conflicted, and maybe even consider not continuing the mission, but then get re-radicalized by something and continue the mission. Eren, no re-radicalization necessary. Although Eren's had plenty of radicalizing moments in his life, but there just never seemed to be any conflict once he lived amongst the enemy. He was always prepared to do what he needed to do. And that's a scary difference, which, again, just makes me wonder how much worse things are going to get because Eren is the one with the hand on the nuke button, as it were. Anyway, whoa, I don't even know what I've been saying for the past 10 minutes, but ultimately, the point I'm making with all of this yap is I love these parallels that we are seeing, the generational cycles of these people going through the same thing, experiencing the same things. But Eren is slightly different, but not in a way that's hopeful. He's different in a way that's terrifying. He's the anti-Falco, And now we need to talk about Eren Kruger, which is the name that Eren Yeager used in Marley. Like this, at the end of season 3, or yeah, at the end of season 3 when this happened, it was already like a weird. What does this mean? Like, is this Eren? But it doesn't seem to be. Like, it doesn't really look like him in my opinion. But he uses the name Kruger, which Eren then uses. There again, we don't know that there's any type of like time travel in the series, like in a literal sense, but we know there is time travel insofar as memories coursing through time, both forward and back, as we do know now, because Kruger here had memories of Eren and Mikasa and Armin, and he's like, whose memories are these? So that makes it seem like it's not Eren, because like he would know whose memories those were, right? But it's weird. Like it's too on the nose that Eren then used this name. Like maybe he used it because he knows that that is a Marleyan name because somebody else had it before, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to think. I don't know what the show wants me to think here. Am I supposed to think that this is our Eren as well? Or not? Because I'm pretty sure we like saw a lot of his life, right? Where like we saw, I think his story was like he watched his parents get like burned alive, which that's obviously not what happened to our Eren. So I don't think this is literally Eren Yeager, but there's something weird about this. And okay, what was really made this click even more for me and maybe question my own sanity is something he said that I didn't understand in the previous season, which I yapped about in that video, which was he pressured Grisha to have a family. He's like, that's important. You need to keep living. You need to find love. You need to start a family. Why would he like that didn't make sense to me. Like, why would that be necessary? Like he's just on a mission to go get the coordinate. What does having a family have to do with it? And I think I even mentioned this back then as part of the like, is this Eren? Because like maybe he wanted to guarantee that he was born, you know what I mean? And again, whether or not he's literally Eren, I now think that's absolutely what was happening. He needed Grisha to fall in love, to like he needed that course of events to happen, right? Because it's only because of that Grisha ultimately did get the coordinate because he went to go save his family, right? He's like, please save them, but then they didn't. So then he killed the Fritzes and took the coordinate. So I don't know. I don't even know if I'm making sense right now, but something's weird. That him telling him to have a family, to make sure to have love, only makes sense to me as a manipulation to guarantee that Eren was born. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But what doesn't make sense is them saying, whose memories are these? Who's Armin and Mikasa, right? Like it, because why would he lie about that? Like the only other person there was Grisha, so there's no point in like lying or saying that out loud. So I don't know, something weird's going on here. Maybe it's Eren that lost his memories somehow or something. I don't know, but very strange. All right, I've actually got some more thoughts on the weird time travel stuff and where the story might be going. But before we get to that, we need to establish the actual history of the world, which we finally found out thanks to Lord Tiber's speech. Assuming his speech was accurate, but it does seem to be, and it seems to check all the boxes and make sense. So what actually happened between the Marleyans and the Eldians, right? So we know that the Eldians, Ymir made a deal with the devil, became the founding titan, had all these titan powers, and using those powers, the Eldians took over the world, basically. They subjugated Marley, they became the ones in power, and in so doing, committed a lot of horrible, unforgivable acts, basically. Such heinous crimes that King Fritz, like, could not live with himself. Well, I guess he could live with himself, but he couldn't take it anymore. He's like, we can't do this. Like, we need to make up for this. Like, this was awful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the vast majority of the Eldians and we're going to go live on an island and stick our head in the sand so that these people can start to recover and, have their own situation again. We stop subjugating them. But he couldn't just straight up do that. The way they instead decided to do it, which I don't know why, I guess they thought it would be the easiest peaceful transfer, was that they were going to create some fake hero that helped them, steal all of these titans from the Eldians, and then in conjunction with the Tiber family who control the Warhammer Titan, they pushed King Fritz out, so he fled. But in reality, he didn't flee. He caused the peace by basically surrendering and leaving. But then the Tiber family, who's controlling Marley from the shadows, invents this hero and invents this story about the Eldians being evil, and, they all pushed him out. But they didn't really. A lot of it's invented, but it's based on truth, because the Eldians did do, apparently, horrific things to the Marleyans, right? Which is why Fritz couldn't take it anymore and decided to flee. But anyway, the point is, Fritz is the one that decided to do that, and he's the one decided to stick his head in the sand and made a vow that he wanted peace. Like this, to stop the cycle, at least for a bit, he was just going to remove himself from the equation. And this answers so many questions, because it's that reason that all of these different generations of Fritzes never changed anything, and it's because they couldn't. This is something I harped on over and over in my previous videos. I can't remember their names, but like the current king, whoever it is in Paradise or whatever, he or his brother or whatever. We know that when they were kids, they were like, Dad, like, can you please just like protect people from the Titans? What are we doing? What are we doing? And the dad like wouldn't do it. And then when that guy became king, he didn't do it. And I was like, why are people not doing this? I thought it was because the original king like took over their bodies, and because that's what he wanted, he continued to do it. But no, it seems to be that he made some sort of binding vow or something, a nin contract, where no one can use this power anymore, because he doesn't want the cycle to perpetuate, right? And so that's why the Tiber family and the powers that be in Marley weren't too concerned with going to take over Paradise. Obviously, we know that the warrior program exists, that Zeke and Reiner and all of them did infiltrate to try and steal the coordinate. So I'm not saying that like they weren't trying to maybe get it back, but that's the main reason that like it was only those secret missions, I feel like. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. But yeah, basically the first king felt so awful about everything that he was like, I'm just going to go hide for as long as possible. But if/when the Marleyans ever get powerful enough to come knock on our door and make us pay for our sins, then I'm just going to accept it. Like, this dude, I mean, I can kind of sympathize with where he's coming from, but like it's just weird, I don't think it was the right choice. But anyway, point is, he made this vow that the coordinate could not be used by his bloodline to activate all the Titans to come stomp everybody, or whatever we want to call it, right? Which is why there's this whole thing about like, oh, only the Reese bloodline can actually control the coordinate, but that was a lie. That was a lie, because they're the only ones that couldn't truly use it. And in order to maintain this frail state of peace, they perpetuated that lie, because if anyone else got the coordinate, they might go berserker with it, right? Which is why this is such a big deal when Eren gets it, which is probably why the war effort and stuff really starts gearing up from Marley once they find that out, which is why, of course, leads to this whole fake thing with Tiber sacrificing himself, essentially. Okay, anyway, Yapathon Crazython. What does that mean? Okay. Boom. All of that being said, we now know that Eren having the coordinate is a massive threat because he can truly wield it. But this makes me re-examine some things I've thought previously, because I was like, well, maybe Eren is a royal, because I'm sure that he'll be able to use the power eventually. And I thought that his whole fist bump with his stepmom Titan, that's not really a stepmom, felt very, I didn't buy that. Like, I didn't think that was too convenient for me. And I was like, so Eren must just actually be royal. But now knowing that royal would hold him back, I'm starting to think he's not royal anymore. But here's where I'm lost. The royal family can't fully utilize the coordinate in an effort to keep peace. But is there still some truth to the fact that they're the only ones who could wield it? You know what I mean? Or was that a lie as well? Because if it's true, then Eren fist bumping stepmom was an insane coincidence. But if it's false, then Eren will at some point unlock the ability to use it fully himself. But at this point, nobody thinks that that's the case. And I haven't even gotten to this yet, but the fact that freaking Zeke is working with Eren now could be the answer to that. Because that could be the way that Eren has a royal on beck and call to fist bump to control the coordinate when he wants to, and he'll be able to control it with no strings attached since he's not royal. Right? I don't know, man. I'm really torn on this. I can't decide if Eren is royal or not. And I think I just need to know the stipulations of how this binding vow works, right? Because if both things are true, that only royals can use it, but also they're restricted, then the Eren plus Zeke combo is the perfect answer to that, right? Because he'll just fist bump Zeke to activate the royal condition, and then he gets unrestricted use. So that solves why those two are working together. It doesn't solve like how they came to work together, which I'm assuming we'll get some flashbacks about how that came to be, but it solves the why of why they would, you know? But something that surprised me is that there was a line from Zeke during the Marley Arc where like at least he said he didn't understand why he could do the things he could do. Like as if he didn't know he was royal. And if he doesn't know he's royal, then that can't be the reason they came together. Unless Eren knows he's royal, but Zeke doesn't. Which he could, because he has his father's memories. So maybe that's why. Anyway, I think it could still be that Eren's royal. Just because, because I don't know. So many things are coming into question now because my season 3 video, back when I thought that Eren would be royal so that he'd have the ability to use the coordinate, that meant that Carla had to be royal, right? Which made sense to me if Grisha, like, even though I do think he loved his wife and son, or at least started to at some point, maybe it was all part of his plan originally. Like he somehow tracked down a royal bloodline, found Carla, and then like purposefully sired Eren to fulfill his duty. Because again, for some reason, Grisha's like, Eren, you have to do this. And if Eren's not royal, it doesn't really make sense why it has to be Eren. You know what I mean? But if he is royal, then he's going to be bound by the binding vow. So I'm missing something still. But also, full tinfoil hat here when we found out the first freaking king's name was Carl Fritz. Carla, you know? No, probably nothing there. But yeah, I don't know. I've yapped about this for like 10 minutes straight and I'm not getting anywhere, so I guess I'll move on. But there's something weird with this. There's something weird with this royal binding vow rule coordinate stuff, and I don't know yet. In any case, though, I am very curious to see just how Eren managed to turn Zeke, right? Because this kid, or he's not a kid anymore, but was indoctrinated since he was a kid and literally turned in his own parents because of it, right? And then it's not as if he had some change of heart as he grew up in this society and learned the truth. No, like, we know he was a diehard radical up until a couple years ago, you know, leading the charge as the Beast Titan against Paradise. So, like, what could Eren have possibly told him that changed his mind finally, you know what I mean? And so drastically too, for the fact that like not only is he like, yeah, you know, maybe like not only to the point where he maybe like sits out and stuff, but no, he actively helps Eren to presumably destroy the Marleyans. Now I maybe can't say that with certainty, but he's helping Eren, so like I can only imagine that it must be something Eren knows thanks to all of the memories Eren has that just convinced him. But like, why would he even believe anything Eren tells him? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm very curious to have those pieces of the puzzle filled in. But it's a really, really interesting development to the story that I did not expect. I did not expect that reveal when Zeke was like, I'm working with Eren or whatever. But yeah, again, as far as the why of the narrative from a storytelling perspective, it could be the fist bump royal power. Again, that would make sense, but I'm not ready to say that Eren's not royal. Anyways, I also loved the way that this kind of recontextualizes other things we saw from Zeke during this arc leading up to that point. Again, wanting to protect Colt from becoming the Beast Titan could also be because like he doesn't want that for Colt, but also could be partially because like he's still working on this plan. Like he can't relinquish the power yet because he and Eren have a plan, you know? And it could also be why he was like, hey, give me this next year to go try to get the coordinates still. Let me make up for what I did. You know, again, I'm assuming all of those things were in favor of setting up the dominoes for what he and Eren have planned. And even though he and Eren are working together, I still can't really imagine him being on the same page as Eren, right? Because even if he does agree with like the atrocities that maybe Marley has committed, maybe he disagrees with how him and other Marleyans, even within the warrior program, have been used and treated. Like maybe he's all for that, but he's also lived in this society, knows good people that live here, right? Including these kids, like you know Gabby and Colt and Falco. So I just can't imagine he would be on board for like Eren massacring all of them, the innocents included, right? So like, does he want something else? And it's like, you know, enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's like a tenuous alliance for the time being. Or did Eren somehow fully convince this man to where he's now on the exact same page and is like, kill them all? And then another thing I've been thinking about is the fact that Eren seemingly did this completely rogue. Like, this wasn't some well orchestrated plan from the Scout Corps or Paradis as a whole, but seemingly he just went on his own, which, how did he even get to Marley by himself, if that's the case? And like, what were the powers that be at Paradise doing? Like, what was this, like, was everyone else just cool with burying their heads in the sand and being like, well, now that we know the truth, I guess it is just kind of chill. Let's just live out on this island where no one's going to bother us. And Eren was like, no, screw that. I'm going to go take back what's ours. And everyone else was like, you're crazy. You know, like, what were they doing if since he was only doing this by himself? And I guess whatever he discovered and wrote in those letters to them was compelling enough that they decided to come over here and help. Or maybe it wasn't a matter of him having a compelling plan, but them just not wanting to risk losing the coordinate. It could very much be that. And they're like, well, Eren's about to do something crazy, so if we don't go help, he might die, and then we're going to be really screwed. Now that I'm saying that, that seems to be more likely. But just like, what is his plan? You know, like, was it simply getting the Warhammer Titan, and did he really need that? Because for all intents and purposes, as it was described here, especially if he has Zeke working with him, and therefore the royal fist bump, why couldn't he just, if the whole plan about like sending the million Titans to come destroy the world, can't he already do that? So like, what is the point of this mission if that's true? He obviously did take the Warhammer Titan, but like, did he just think that the Warhammer Titan on its own was strong enough to oppose a million Titans? I don't know. There seems to be maybe another piece I'm missing here. But yeah. Okay, now to start wrapping this up, I'm going to speak about what I think might be happening in this story. And again, I don't know if this is supposed to be Eren or not, but I think there might be some time travel that makes this literally a cyclical story. Again, something that we've been talking about a lot in terms of narrative and theme, but it might be literal in time travel stuff, because the picture I'm seeing here is there's basically one huge thing, right? This original taking over of the Marleyans by the Eldians that was so awful that even the Eldian king was like, this is unforgivable. We got to go. If they come try to kill us, I'm going to let them. Like, that's how awful he thinks what the Eldians originally did was. Why did that happen originally, right? Like, what is it, just war is hell and that's all it is? Or I think, like we've been talking about, Eren is so hateful and on revenge and different from Reiner and Grisha, and that he doesn't even seem to be conflicted about it. He's gonna do something awful. What if whatever Eren does is that original thing, which doesn't make sense without time travel. And I don't even know how to connect the pieces yet, but that would be like the ultimate tragedy if like the Titan breaking through the walls and eating his mom like created him, and he inadvertently is what created that, if that makes sense. Because everyone's worried about what Eren's gonna do, and so if he does this awful thing, like maybe that's the thing from back when, you know what I mean? And it's okay. I'm not making sense probably, but what I'm ultimately getting at is we know that Ymir was like the little girl that made the deal with the devil, right? I'm thinking that Eren is somehow the devil that she made the deal with. You know, because Eren has the founding Titan power right now. So if he does somehow, like, whatever happens in the present doesn't work, maybe, or like it doesn't accomplish what Eren actually wants. And so if there is some, and I'm using the word time travel, but I could just mean like consciousness time travel. I don't know, but maybe like it doesn't work, and so maybe Eren's realizing he has this ability, decides to travel back in time and be like, the only way for me to fix things is to destroy them from the beginning. Like, I'm going to go back in time and I am going to wipe Marley off the face of the earth. Like, in Eren's mind, that's like maybe the only way he can see how to do this, right? So he does that, and then he then is that original incident that does the horrific things to all the Marleyans, and then he passes on the power to Ymir or whatever, right? And then the cycle continues, right? And these Eldians who, I don't know how many more generations down the line we're talking from Ymir to the first King Fritz that created Paradise, but Fritz, just like being the next line in here, didn't actually commit those atrocities, but realizes how awful they are. And so he's like, we deserve whatever's coming to us, but I'm just going to try to take my people and live in paradise for as long as we can. And the cycle continues, right? Now it's a closed cycle if this is true, which is like a plot hole in time travel stories, but all time travel stories honestly have plot holes. I don't even know if I'm making sense right now, but that would fit very well for me. It would be like such a tragic tale, but would be like so earnest to like showing the horrors of war. Is that like the violence just gets perpetuated, right? And Eren like reaching such like a bloodlusted, like, I'll do whatever it takes, I'll kill them all to do it, like ultimately becomes the thing that started everything. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And let's just assume that's true. I don't know how Kruger fits into that, right? Because I don't, unless he can like consciousness travel, hop between different attack titans of the past or something, and like he at one point was Kruger but wasn't always. I don't know. But for right now, my best guess is that Eren might be the devil Ymir made a deal with. I forgot to mention one piece of this that I wanted to. If this time travel circle thing was true, it would explain the memories he got. Because when he thinks of Mikasa and Armin, that's strange because that's in the future from where he is. But if it was a cyclical Eren time traveled at some point, then technically Eren would have existed before him, which means those memories would predate him as well, meaning they were memories from the past and not the future. Anyways, y'all, I'm sure there's like a million little nuances or things I wanted to touch on that I'm just forgetting in the moment, but I literally thought this video would be like 20 minutes long, and I was like, this is good. Then I'm going to split this away from the other half of part one to, you know, keep it more digestible. And this is like almost an hour long, I think. So thank God I decided to split this up. But again, let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments. I won't be reading them probably for maybe another month until we can finish season 4. I don't know how long that'll take, but I will read them eventually, and it'll be fun to go back through them. But if you are interested in joining me as I watch the rest of season 4, be sure to join the Discord. Now that I'm putting this video out, we will be starting the second half of part 1 very soon, probably this weekend. I can't 100% commit to that yet, but most likely this weekend, at least some episodes. So we'd love to have you guys join for that. And yeah, thanks for watching.